Hello, my good friends, and welcome to How to Ethically Get Paid More by Doing Less. My name is Mike Shreve, and if you are a freelancer or a consultant or a service provider who is struggling with price, that price is the thing that's getting you hung up on getting to whatever that business is that you are hoping for, hang tight. We are going to speed along in this training, but I'm going to help you use ethical methods to raise your price. Specifically, what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you how to negotiate price or how to deal with price in 4 distinct situations. So either you are the don't know Dan, so you're not really sure even where to start, what your price should be, is it relative to the market, what's the strategies for actually setting a price. Then you've got sorry Susan. Maybe you're the person who other people are maybe telling you that you should be charging more, but you're like, no, I can't. My whole strategy is that I go into the market low price. I do it on volume. If you're that person, I really want to help you because you're just like exploding, you're about to explode and you have so much potential in you that it's really just a few small mental tweaks and you'll be making a lot more money. And then of course you've got short-sighted Sam. His whole problem is that he knows he should be charging more. He just can't figure out how to convince clients that he's worth as much as he knows he's worth. And then last you have poor client Carl. Client Carl is where we have all been at some point in our freelancing career or service providing career or consulting career. It's where we got clients at a certain price and then we grew, but the client didn't change how much they pay us. And now we're trying to figure out how do we raise the prices on the client without losing the client? Should I just dump the client? Should I go get new clients? I'm going to give you strategies. I'm going to give you templates. I'm going to give you all kinds of good stuff in this training. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Mike Shreve. I'm founder of the No Pants Project, which you can go check out later. I'm a 6-figure freelancer. I'm a writer, and I help creative service professionals unscrew themselves. And what I mean by that is a lot of us just have these tendencies to shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to price because, we're just like, well, I just want to focus on the thing that I'm doing. I don't necessarily want to worry about price and, let the business people figure that out, right? But the problem is if you're a freelancer and you're providing services for other people, your pricing strategy affects your ability to help others. If you are not making enough money to devote the time, attention, and energy to a certain client, you are actually hurting the client by charging less money. So I'm going to help you through that. Now, if you want to go make fun of me for a little bit, go to the freelancecopywritermike.com. You can tease me. You can hold it against me. But basically 2.5 years ago, I didn't know anything about price. This was my old website. Forgive me for what I didn't know then, right? Back then I was charging about $300 to $500 for what I now charge $5,000 for, or an $8,000 per month retainer. Now, the only reason any of this matters is to show you how quickly you can go from, I have no idea what's going on, to, holy cow, I just 10x'd my income, right? Doing the same work. I'm not 10 times better in 2.5 years, right? That is like probably an impossibility, but I'm charging 10 times more. Let's figure out how to do that. Okay, let's assume that you are the don't know Dan. You don't know what to charge. It's just confusing, and you haven't really used a strategic approach to pricing. The first thing I'd tell you is that you need to remember that pricing, like marketing, like sales, like product development, is a strategy in a business, which means that separately you must devote some time, energy, and focus to strategically determining what your price is. You cannot just go into the market and be like, I don't know, just somebody like whatever happens, that's what my price is. You have to strategically set your price. So here's how you do this from a 20,000 foot view, and then we'll dig down deep. First, you need to figure out who you want to work with, and especially figure out what they value. Here's an example. Let's say that you're a logo designer and you are talking with a client, and in your mind, the client You think that the client values, I don't know, really cool colors or something, okay? And so you're having a conversation and the client says, okay, how much is the logo? You say it's $5,000. They say, okay, great. Why is it $5,000? That's a completely fair question for a client to ask. Why is it $5,000? You respond, well, it's because it's all of the cool colors. And you respond that way because you think that's what the client cares about. But it turns out the client cares more about saving time. Let's just say for this example, the client cares about saving time. You just missed a sale because you were not speaking to their values. So when you set your price, when you go into your pricing strategy, you need to figure out what is it that people value, Because once you understand that, you can have the conversations in which, if you would come into that conversation and be like, hey, it's a $5,000 logo. He says, why? You say, it's because it's going to save you 37 hours in the next 30 days. He's going to be like, great. 37 hours of my time is definitely worth $5,000. Here's the check. Let's go. You see how that works? So that's the first thing you need to sort of determine. Second is you need to figure out where in your business this particular service plays a role. Is it a feeder service, meaning it's just there to get people in the door? Is it a retainer? Is it a profit center? Is it a premium? Like, we could go on and have an entirely separate workshop just on where this plays into your business. But if you have like a service ladder or tiered pricing or multiple package options, you need to figure out where in your business this resides, because obviously you don't charge $5 for a premium product and you don't charge $100,000 for a feeder service. So knowing where it fits into your business strategy allows you to determine where sort of the price range that it needs to be in. And then lastly is something that I call the freedom number. The freedom number is this simple. You figure out what you want in the next year, and you figure out how many hours you want to work, and whatever that hourly rate comes out to in order for you to earn the things that you want out of life, that's your freedom number. Now, this is not a pricing number. You don't take that freedom number and then say, okay, I need to make, this package is now whatever times the freedom number. It's simply a metric for you to understand and gauge where you are in your life. Too many freelancers go freelancing, build their service-based business, thinking that they're going to have all this freedom and flexibility, and then one day they wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning after they went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning the night before, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a waking nightmare. This business that I've built is no longer a business that I want to run. So you have some options for once you get that sort of 20,000 foot view data and information, you've done the thinking, you have some options for setting price. Now, first is to guess. That's where you go onto Reddit, and people who probably aren't even freelancing are giving you fake advice they read off of some blog somewhere, or they saw it in a Gary Vaynerchuk video, right? They give you vague sort of generalities and you make some guesses. The other strategy, and this is a dangerous one because it feels like it's a good strategy, but it really isn't. It's called client control pricing. This is when you run a survey to people who are not your clients and you say, how much would you pay for this service? Here's the problem with that. How many people do you know in your life right now that talk a big game about nutrition? They're like, this is what you need to eat, you need to exercise, you need to not do this. And then one day you catch them double fisting cheeseburgers with like a milkshake in between their legs, and like over their shoulder they're like sucking on a Jolly Rancher, right? I mean, people say all sorts of things, but in the world of freelancing, until someone pulls out a credit card, that's the only real information. Meaning, everything before that credit card coming out and saying, yes, I'm going to pay this invoice, it's all speculation. So I don't even waste my time with these kinds of client-controlled pricing strategies. Next is what's called the max volume pricing, and this is where you undercut the market and rely on volume. This is when you're like, I'm just going to get 30 clients and they're all going to pay me $50. You guys, this is the best way to burn out. And this sucks because a lot of freelancers get into this sort of mentality. They'll go to Upwork, they'll go to Freelancer where nobody pays good prices, and they'll work themselves into the ground and they'll quit. And they'll go back to their old job. And in their mind, they're like, well, I got tons of clients and it didn't work, therefore freelancing doesn't work. That to me, that totally sucks because, man, they could have made such good freelancers if they just had a better pricing strategy, but now they've like closed that off to themselves forever. And that's not cool because we need more service providers in the market who do a good job, right? I would hate for pricing to be the reason why people who could have potentially done really, really awesome work aren't in the market anymore. Okay, now here's some better options that you have. The first is the industry norm. I don't really like it necessarily. It's where you basically look at your competitors and then you just charge the same price. I'm not a big fan of that because it commoditizes you. I've got like a 3.5 hour workshop that I do all about how to avoid commoditization, especially in 2017, 2018, you got to get out of the commodity market. But if you really don't have any other method for determining price, it's not a bad place to start. Next is hourly. And this is where a lot of freelancers they kind of get the taste of what good pricing can be, but then it sort of backfires on them. I'll tell you why in a second. This is basically just the cost plus strategy. You take your expenses, then you take how much your proposed hourly wage is, you figure out how many hours it's going to cost to complete the project, and that's your price. Now, the problem with hourly, and what I don't like about it, is it's very, very hard to convince someone to pay you up front. It's typically you have to chase people for the money, and I do not like that. I also am not a big fan of having to track hours. That to me feels like a job, right? Like I don't want to be at they make you track your hours at Domino's. So I don't really want to, I don't want to get back into that game. What I prefer is what's called the packaged pricing. And here's what you do. You figure out the value that you add to someone, and then you charge 10% of that value. Let's do the math together. So it's called real world currency pricing math. And here's why it's called real world currency. It's because you're simply turning what you do, the results of what you do, into a real world dollar number so that the client can fully understand how much value you are going to actually bring. So let's work on this together. Let's assume that you are maybe you do a press release. Okay, maybe that's your service. I'm just riffing off the top of my head. Your press release here in step 1, the clarity on the end result. What is it that your thing does for your customer or client? It brings in 200 new customers over a year. Let's say you drop 3 press releases or 1 press release, whatever it is, okay? Now, how do you come up with this end result? You just kind of guesstimate, right? Like, it's not an exact science. Don't guarantee it. Just, okay, typically if I do this, it'll bring in 200 new customers over a year. Then you determine the value of the end result to the customer. Let's say that you did this for a restaurant. 200 new people come into that restaurant because of this press release over the course of a year. They typically spend $30 a plate, let's say, for a meal. And that means that your press release that you wrote brought in $6,000 to this particular business. Therefore, you calculate your fee. 10% of $6,000 is $600. So your press release is $600. Full stop. That's how much it costs for you to write a press release, assuming that these are your kind of results. So it's important for you to know what you can and can't do. Now, what happens if something you do doesn't bring in this kind of a result? Well, then you start looking at time saved, right? So if it's hard for you to be like, how many new customers, what's the business growth? Then you start looking at more preventative things. What's the time saved? What's the headache saved? What's the stress avoided? And what's that worth to people? So for example, let's say time saved. Or let's say, let's do a really hard one. What about stress avoided? Okay, again, off the top of my head. Let's assume that you do a product or a service where you are a project manager and you are, saving the headaches of some business owner who's online and can't deal with his digital team. So there's 2 ways to go about this. One is to look at what you do and then literally do a line by line of who would they have to hire separately. What is sort of like the average salaries of someone who normally does what you do. So for example, you would say, okay, here's the normal salary of a project manager, but I also do this and this is my service. So here's average salary of a social media manager, here's average salary, et cetera, et cetera. But also the stress, right? So you know how people sue each other for like mental damages and all that kind of stuff. It's that kind of same idea, right? So you sort of guesstimate and estimate how many hours would they be spending thinking about it? How many hours would they be spending stressing about it? How many hours would they be spending researching and finding other people and hiring other people? And you just come up with a fairly decent number. And then you take 10% of that. So it's not an exact science. I don't want you to be like, well, what is it to the 0.079, or anything like that. It's more of just a sort of a generalized value. But the idea here is if you go to someone and you say, for $600, I could potentially make you $6,000. They're going to be like, holy smokes, where do I sign up? That's the point of this particular exercise. And for you to be able to then visualize that internally and then to be able to communicate that to prospective clients. Okay, now let's assume that you've just done this exercise and you've got a number and it's like, whatever you do brings people $100,000, and which means you need to charge them $10,000. And you're like, holy cow, I do not have the confidence to charge $10,000. I want to give you some scientific principles on why you must charge $10,000. Otherwise, you're going to sabotage yourself, okay? That's assuming that you're sorry, Susan, and you just want to undercut the market because of a lack of confidence or belief, okay? So here we go. Contextual pricing. Where your pricing happens matters. That's what I want you to take away from this. So there's a Nobel Prize winning economist named Richard Thaler, and he wanted to break some ideas in traditional economics. What traditional economists say is that rational people, so people like you and me, think that milk is either above or under $1, but it's not both. So what that means is people will look at something and they'll say, okay, this thing is worth a certain number. Okay, that's all that means. So it's worth a certain number. But Thaler is like, dude, beer at the beach, bro. And he does this experiment where he goes to a group of people and he says, let me go snag a beer at that shack over there. Okay, just on the beach. Everyone's on the beach, and he just goes, hey, I'm going to go grab a beer over there. Can you guys pitch in? How much are you willing to pay for a beer? And everyone's like, a couple bucks. It's like it's not a lot of money. It's just a shack over there where the beer is. He then goes to that same group of people and asks a different question, a slightly different question. He says, let me snag a beer at that fancy hotel that's off the beach. How much should I pay? And the response is, oh, that beer must be more expensive. He doesn't say what kind of beer it is. He doesn't say what it tastes like. He doesn't say whether it's cold. He just says where he's buying it from. What that means is, why that's important to you, is that price is not fixed. Something can be worth more than one price. It means that milk can be worth more than $1 and less than $1. Now, traditional economists were like, what? Right? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. It ruins all of our models. But the reality is that price is perception. It's not a fixed thing. So those of you who are out there trying to like aim for something, there's nothing to aim for. You have to create price. Okay? So let me tell you how those of you who don't want to get involved in like sleazy marketing or have to do high pressure sales, how you can create price with just by having more things to offer. It's called price anchoring. And this is a way for you to use the psychology of price influx to create the perception of value and increase your prices without having to do anything. It's all ethical, it's all legal, it's all moral. Here's how it works. There's this guy named W.P. Poundstone who writes about psychology of numbers, game theory. He does a lot of stuff with like how to, what's the likelihood that you'll win in Vegas, that kind of stuff. He also wrote this book called Priceless. And in this book, there's another beer experiment. I don't know why this presentation has so many beer experiments in it, but that is what it is, okay? So in the experiments, he says there's these people got two choices, okay? They could buy a beer for $2.50 or beer for $1.80. Now, 80% in that instance chose the cheaper beer. Now, this is what messes up freelancers. They have this idea that it's a binary choice. They believe that out in the marketplace, it's expensive versus cheap. And so they think, well, gosh, if 80% of the people are choosing cheaper, I should go be cheap, right? That's the illusion that a lot of freelancers get caught up in. But here's the second test that they ran. They then gave that same group of people three different choices. They gave a $3.40 choice, which is like a new premium choice. Then they did the $2.50, and then they did the $1.80. Most people now bought the $2.50 price, and 10% bought the $3.40 price. So what the heck does all this mean? It means that you as a freelancer must, within your own business, have more than two pricing options. And when you do, watch what happens. Everybody moves from the lower to the middle level, and then there's a group of those that move to that middle level that will go even higher. So essentially, the 10% of people who bought the $3.40, that's just an extra 10% of people who buy a premium package. So let's walk through how you implement price anchoring to get higher prices paid for in your business. Okay. And this is, you don't have to use any sales tactics. You literally just tell them what your prices are. I mean, it's like super low pressure. So first is you need to know what your core offer is. What do you want to sell the most of? So in this example, it was the $2.50 beer. What's the thing you enjoy doing the most in your business? That needs to be your core offer. That needs to be the core price. Then you take that core offer and you chunk it out a smaller entry point offer, meaning you would be happy to do it. You just don't want the bulk of your business to be that thing. I honestly recommend like a quickie opportunity that you can kind of like template out and do over and over and over and over again, that's your $1.80 beer, right? That's the lowest tier. That's the thing that some people will buy. Most people will buy your core offer, but then you create the ultimate nobody would ever buy this thing offer. Now, obviously you have to be prepared to, if you're going to sell it, be prepared to actually do it. But I recommend doing something like be crazy. A $5,000 package, a $10,000 package, a $25,000 package. Figure out what it would take for you to deliver on a $25,000 package. What could you do that would bring in $250,000 worth of value to someone else? Let me give you some examples. So I have an $80,000 package. Okay, now this $80,000 package, it takes a year for us to complete. And so I earn, well, technically it's like 10 months. So I earn $8,000 per month for that 10-month contract, but it's technically an $80,000 package. Now, when people come and work with me, they're like $80,000, maybe 10% take that $80,000 package, right? But knowing that I have an $80,000 package makes all of my $50,000, which is just a $5,000 a month, and my $10,000 package, which is just $1,000 a month, so much more interesting, right? So this is all you have to do. Just add a premium product to your service, be open about it, and you will find that people are more willing to pay more than when you just had two, or even worse, when you just had one product. So for those of you who are like, I don't know if I can do this, I'm just going to undercut the market, don't. Instead, add more offerings and you'll find that people are more likely to take the middle road, and that should be your core offer. Make sure you price that appropriately. Okay, so now let's say you got an $80,000 package like I do. How in the heck do you prove $80,000 worth of value? This is Short-Sighted Sam, those of you who have problems proving value. So there's 3 ways for us to do it. I'm super, super excited to share these with you. The first is to understand why people buy. The second is to learn how to beat the hagglers. Okay, there's always going to be hagglers in business. And the third is to actually offer less. So here's how you prove value. So again, understand why people buy. You want to know why people buy? Watch the Masters of Price. Okay, I don't know if y'all have seen how much Disneyland charges for all of its stuff, but Disney, the whole entire company, Disneyland, Disney World, they are the masters of price. For those of you who don't know, if you're maybe in another country watching this, Disneyland is a massive theme park and a media conglomerate that is worth, I think, billions. I should probably have checked that before. It's definitely hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a big enough company that has permeated the culture of everyone from children to adults. There are people who literally love Disneyland. It's a company, you guys, and they love it. Okay? Now, one of the things that you'll find from Disney is that they use feeling to sell, not logic. And my friends, that is the key to being able to prove the value of something that's very, very, very expensive. You need to stop having logical conversations. And instead, you need to put emphasis on feeling. Let me give you an example. This is from the Harvard School of Business. What you're looking at here is all of the different things that Disney does to get people into their theme parks. Why? Because they make the most money at the theme park, right? So you figure someone buys a Disney movie, it's like $20, $30, $40, right? Or they buy a little stuffed animal, $30, $40, $50. They're not making a lot of money. Disney isn't making a lot of money off of those things. But when you go to the theme park, it's thousands of dollars. Then when you go into like for the hotel and for the tickets, then you go into the theme park and there's all sorts of upsells everywhere. There's food to eat. There's things to buy. There's secret rooms to pay to get access to. There's all these different things. And so you see that what Disney has done is they've created other assets that help people feel things. Like the Disney movie is, yes, it's a good movie, and yes, but it's meant to create a fan. It's meant to create someone who is more than just a customer. So my question to you right now is, what are you doing to create fans? It can be anything from YouTube videos. It can be anything from social media posts. What I do is I just do a daily email. So I get people onto an email list and I send them daily emails, and I send them emails in a way where it's like a Disney movie instead of like promotional pitches, right? So it's sort of like mailing an email to a friend. And I got separate training on how to deal with that and how to get that daily email. It's probably the most efficient way to create feeling amongst people that I can then filter into my services. But you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to help people feel what you're all about? If it's nothing, you're going to have a very hard time proving your value. That's why we call them short-sighted Sam, right? The people who can charge $80,000 do a little bit of extra work in this department, helping people to feel something about the product or service, okay? Next, let's go and examine some actual strategies for helping people to feel certain things. Okay, so here's 4 simple tactics for creating a premium price experience, right? So the first thing is constant attention. Like I said, consistency. Disney is everywhere. Right? They try to get you when you're a little kid all the way up till you're adult, and they're everywhere. So you can use social media. I like the daily email. This is all about the attention economy. Go read some books about attention economy. Go Google how to operate in the attention economy. When you have attention, that's like step 1 of being able to control the feeling that people have. So get their attention. Once you have their attention, then you can deliver feeling to them. Next this is a really cool one, is actually to have unique names. So don't call yourself a copywriter. Call yourself an online sales professional or a salesman with words or something. Like, come up with some unique name. The package that you have, that is the one thing that I did do right in my Wayback Machine, right? The thing that we looked at, I had unique names for the packages. And the reason is that works is because people are bored with the same stuff. When you say I do emails, they're like, well, 500 people already contacted me today that says they can write emails. But new feels different. And different forces focus. And anytime you're like scrolling, it's like, ooh, that's different. It's something happens in the brain where you're just like, all of your focus goes onto that thing. Think about it this way. This is an actual scientific study that streets that are for sale on Boulevard sell faster and for more money than houses that are on a street named Street, right? So the name can also invoke and suggest feeling. Like, you should feel a certain way about a house that's on Boulevard versus a house that's on Street. So be careful with the things that you name and how you name them and the words that you use. Next is, if you want someone to feel like they're getting just a big fat chunk of value, bundle stuff. What I see a lot of freelancers do that's a huge mistake is when they create proposals, they do line by line invoices. Like, okay, social media management is going to cost you $5,000. This is going to cost you $200. Invoicing you is going to cost this much money. Instead, what I recommend is bundle that all together. So it's like, think of a unique name for your service and say it's this one fee. And then what you do is you can break down everything that they get, but don't put how much you're charging them for each of the individual things, right? That's a massive mistake. Definitely tell them it's a big thing, it's a unique thing, there's all these different things that you can get, but don't break it down. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there and read it like, ouch, 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 ouch. And then they're going to start to haggle you. They're going to be like, can you take this off? And I want this out of the thing, and all these sorts of type of things. Okay, and then lastly is to make someone feel something, you have to create an atmosphere. Now, a lot of freelancers get this wrong. A lot of service professionals get this wrong. Look, you guys, you got to be prompt. You got to be professional. You got to have some logos. You got to have an email signature. It's the tiny details that make a big difference for someone to feel a certain way about you. Now, what's the feeling that we're looking for? We're looking for the feeling of premium. This guy, this girl is legit. She knows I'm not her first client. I'm not his first, restaurant type client. I'm feeling in an atmosphere of this person knows what they're talking about. Now, if you want to beat hagglers, people who are trying to push you around, that premium pricing experience that we just talked about is critical. But there's a few other tips that I want to give you when you create this atmosphere and people are still trying to devalue, what do I say to people when I've got an $80,000 package? Here's what I do. First off, the marketing materials that you have, they should disqualify people. Don't try to work with everyone. Tell people how you work. Be totally open about it. Be like, look, if you want to work with me, here's what it's going to take. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's how I work, and hold to that. Hagglers cannot push you around unless you let them. So the thing that I've learned is I'm not really like, I don't like contentious situations. I don't get into fights with people and be like, wow, I won over you and my ego feels so good. I'm just not like really into that. So what I've learned to do is just to be willing to walk away. And the only way that I've been able to like get to that point is to have a solid marketing plan in place. So I use a script to avoid the emotional response. And here's what I do. So if someone's trying to haggle me down on my prices, and I know that I've got a system to get clients if I have to say no to this person, it's like a pretty predictable system, then I just say, hey, thanks so much for your recent pricing offer, because that's typically what they do. They say, well, can you do it for this much? Well, thank you so much for your recent pricing offer. For what you've sent over, I can do X, Y, and Z. So change the conversation and say, look, what you just sent me, I can do something different, but I can't do what we originally agreed on. Now, if you'd like, I can refer you to a vendor who might be able to provide you all of what we originally talked about for this new price you're suggesting. So very clearly call it out, like you're talking about something different. I said it was this much, you're now saying it's this, but I can't offer any guarantees of your work. That line does two things. One is it suggests that you are more legitimate than anyone you can refer, which is hopefully true. But secondly, it's just good business practice that if you're ever going to refer someone, put a call out there. Be like, look, I don't guarantee what this person does, right? So it implies that you're a professional. So then you just follow up the rest of the script. I'm a professional who takes my work very seriously, and my prices allow me to devote my full guaranteed attention to your project. And anything less, and I'm just unable to perform my best, which is what I think you want anyways. Please let me know how you'd like to proceed. That script right there has literally turned hagglers into full price purchasers and super, super happy clients of mine in a numerous number of times. I literally cannot count how many times that script has worked for me. It's yours. Take it, use it. If anyone's trying to haggle down your prices, throw this script at them and see what happens. Make sure you have a marketing process in place so that you can replace those clients. Okay. The last point I want to make for those of you who are having struggles proving the value of the thing that you do, there's this concept of less is more. One of the things that a lot of freelancers do is they feel like because something's more expensive, it needs to be explained more. And that's a serious problem because oftentimes if you're just like explaining, clients are like, hold on a second, why is he spending so much time explaining this? Let them push you for more information. Tease a little bit. It's okay to like, yeah, and this is what I do and here's how much it costs. And for them to be like, wait, hold on a second, what and how, where? Let them push the conversation and don't try to over-explain everything. Say what you do, say what it is, tell them how much it is, and there you go. Now you can do follow-ups. If on the call they like close, they're like, okay, forget that. And they hang up, and you can always follow up and be like, hey, I want to have more conversation about it, but just don't over-explain. Next is to stop anchoring against quality. Remember that concept of anchoring where it's like, you have 3 different products that they're mostly going to go for the middle one. I recommend that you look at all of your service offerings and you start hacking them away to only have a few core things that you do very, very, very well, and you get rid of all of the other services and offerings and things that you do that aren't your absolute best. Why? Because people only want to pay you for your best anyways. So this concept of less is more is like literally like try to whittle down all the craziness that's in your business and use price strategy to make up for whatever that lost revenue was from the side stuff that you were doing, and only focus on the stuff you're good at. It will allow you to charge more as you get more and more case studies, as you get more and more testimonials, all that kind of good stuff. And then here's the best one. This is my personal favorite because honestly, I'm not a big fan of people who take forever to decide whether they're going to purchase. The less time to purchase, use scarcity. One of my favorite things to do is say, listen, here's my offer. If you're interested in taking this offer, I have a deadline of such and such, at which point I'll need to fill this slot with someone else. Now, the only way you can do that is if you have a marketing process in place that where that is actually a true statement, where, people are actually contacting you for more work. It's super easy to do. I'll actually show you how to do that here in a second. I'll introduce you to a product where I teach people how to do that. But less time to purchase. When you add that scarcity, people will make decisions very, very quickly. And it's a beautiful thing because these clients want results. That's all they want. And the faster you can get to a point where you are able to deliver results to them, the faster everybody involved is. Okay, my friends, and now we have the last in our avatars. It's client Carl. Poor Carl. He's under-leveraged with his clients, which means that he has too many clients charging, or, he's not charging enough. How does he get out of that? Okay, there's 4 things that you need to do in order to raise prices on clients that you already have. The first is to just understand that you're not going to be, the second you say, hey, can you pay me more, your client's not going to yell at you. They're not going to fire you the next day. That's not how this works. If your client would do that, be grateful that you got fired by someone who would do that, right? Like real clients, good clients don't typically, the second you ask for an increase in pay, don't just jump ship and run away, especially when you execute the simple strategy that I'm going to give you here in a second. So really, from a technical standpoint, you need an expertise statement, which I'll show you how to make, and you need to execute a simple strategy. And I'll talk a little bit more about just getting new clients because sometimes that's the only answer, but let's get rocking. Okay, one of the things you need to do is to develop an expertise statement. If you were hired originally by someone for less than what you really should be getting charged, it's probably because they don't see you as an expert, sorry. So one of the things that I recommend you do is just to develop this simple statement. I help a certain group of people to feel or experience or get an end result by some mechanism. Do this now while you're considering raising your prices with clients that you have, and I'll talk about later how this is so critical to getting new clients. Okay, so let me give you an example of my expertise statement when I'm helping freelancers. And note that I said when I'm helping freelancers. It's okay to have multiple expertise statements as long as you know when to use them with the appropriate people in the appropriate conversations. Obviously, my clients who I do some other services for don't care what I do with freelancers, right? And vice versa. So here's my expertise statement. I help creative freelancers earn their first $10,000 by teaching them a cold email strategy that I charge my personal clients $25,000 a year to implement. Cool, right? Like, whether or not I could help you in like 2 seconds. Just from that single statement. Now, the more unique it is, the better. And this works because the alternative doesn't. Let me give you the alternative to that statement that I just said. I'm a coach. Okay. Also, yuck. Right? Like, ew, gross. Internet coaches, right? So the thing about what a lot of freelancers and a lot of service professionals do is they say, I'm a Facebook ads consultant. Okay, I'm a busy business owner. I don't know what that means. I don't particularly care. I cannot identify in what you just told me how you are going to help me. That's how powerful and important this expertise statement is. So create it. Like, you can do it right now. Pause the video, or I don't even know if you can pause the video, but whatever this video is doing, come back to it, make notes, whatever. I help a certain group of people to feel, experience, and get an end result by some certain mechanism. Okay, make it. I'll show you how to use it here in a second. Now, you have your expertise statement. You're prepared to talk now as an expert instead of, just as a writer or a graphic designer. Here's how you raise prices on people that you already work with. Run a survey. Now, this is not the survey that I said not to run. This is to the clients that you have, and here's what you're asking them. How am I doing? What would you like more of from me? And what pains are you experiencing in your business right now? Ask those 3 questions. Once you get that data back, send the following. Put it in a letter, put it in an email, however you want to send it. Dear so-and-so, here's what I've done for you, XYZ. In the recent survey, you said that you'd like to see more of X from me, or you said that one of the biggest struggles that you have in your business is X. Then you go to the next line. I can do that for you because I would maybe even add your expertise statement in here. I can do that for you because I help creative freelancers get their first $10,000, blah, 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 blah. And I can help you to achieve that thing you're trying to achieve for X dollars, for $500, for $1,000, $10,000, or maybe a raise, or maybe an increase in pay. And here's the key, I'll also add this extra thing at no extra charge. So the reason a lot of people fail at raising prices with current clients is because they say, I'm going to keep doing the same thing and I want you to pay me more. But instead what you have to do is say, I'm going to do more and I'm going to give you this other thing. And that's why this new price is the way that it is. And what that means is that in some instances, you may be in a client relationship where it would actually be impossible for you to raise your prices because you're already doing too much, right? You're already putting in like 30 hours a week with this client. If that's the case, it might just be time to get new clients, right? So sometimes the only strategy for raising prices on clients is to get new clients. Anyways, let's keep going on this template. Okay, so then you say, if that works, I'd like to start the new pricing on a certain date and give them as much leeway as possible. Don't be like, and I'd like to start the new pricing tomorrow, right? If it doesn't, I can refer you to someone who can continue to serve you at the current pricing you offer. And then of course I'd throw in, I obviously can't guarantee their results, but I know them, I've worked with them in the past, etc. Right? So disqualify that so you protect yourself. Now here's a bonus tip. Give as much warning as you possibly can. And give multiple options. So where it says, I can do that for you for X dollars, you could also say, if you'd like, we can, I've given you there's 3 different options we can do moving forward. Option A is this. Option B is this. Option C is this. Use price anchoring when you do that, right? But here's the really important thing is if you really want to raise prices on a client, you have to serve first, meaning don't do this just to be a greedy person. Figure out how better can you help the person that you're already working with. Give them a realistic and a reasonable offer with reasonable guidelines and deadlines, and then just offer it to them. And if they say no, then go get a new client. Be outcome independent when you do these things, meaning set your freelancing service-based business up in a way that allows you to easily let go of clients or easily let go of prospects if need be.